Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News at the South Florida Conservative News Service, and it is Saturday, May 24th. We are going to talk about the possible connections that were not expressed during Donald Trump's meeting with the president of South Africa. The Trump derangement syndrome is so great at this point in the United States that people miss a lot of nuance in discussions that occur between President Trump, his administration, and foreign diplomats. But then again, they're not looking for it, so they don't see it. And even some of the people that are theoretically on the right also are not following through with the key principle that Donald Trump has stressed throughout this presidency and the run up to this presidency, which is make America great again, but also to usher in a golden age of the United States as has not been seen possibly since post World War II. The thing that everybody harps on more than anything else is the fact that he brought the president of South Africa in, sat him down in front of the news people, and put on a video about African atrocities against the white South Africans, or Afrikaners to be specific. Now, we don't really see the video so much, but there are way more graphic images available online as to the murder scenes, the victims recalling the group rapes, the mutilations, the burnings, things of that nature that have occurred to the white Boers or Afrikaner farmers throughout this period after apartheid. First and foremost, it's about land. The problem that they do have is without the white farmer, the Africans have been unable to sustain their food economy at all. The same situation occurred in Zimbabwe when it was transferred from Rhodesia to Zimbabwe. They no longer were able to produce the food because the properties were given to political friends of the government who just wanted the land and assumed it would work itself, which is not how things are. Okay. There's a lot of dynamics that occur in these African countries, especially the Rhodesia and South Africa, maybe one or two of the other ones that had a lot of white settlement in it. But in general, this is just a political expedient for the government to be involved in. There are things that the United States is involved in that I personally I didn't even follow on because I figured it was all a bunch of scams. But there's a lot going on in there with HIV, things like that. And we'll talk about a bunch of it right now. So, what you had was the situation, as I said, showing this South African delegation this video, the Cross Memorial, which is on private property, but has the names and photographs of everybody who's been murdered by a white farmer that's been murdered by an African. And there are like 100,000 of them. So, like I said, not very subtle, but it wasn't being done to be subtle. It was not Trump lecturing, but Trump testing. The people in the room who knew what was going on were all eyes and ears about what was going to happen. Because you got to see, the Biden years fed billions of dollars into the Ukraine, only to watch corruption deepen and oversight collapse. Trump doesn't want to repeat. So this isn't a threat. It was a terms and conditions preview. You can understand where I'm coming from. South Africa got the pitch. Clean up your house, walk away from Beijing and Moscow, and in return, the Americans will extend a hand to you. So what is it that we offer that they are getting from us that they are not getting from others? We have three major plays. Okay, and each one's bigger than the last one. One is a reboot of what's called PEPFAR, PEPFAR. When I mention anything of this nature, you can go to our site, southfloridaconservative.com, look at the print versions of this, which include a lot more detail on these programs. This was actually a presidential slush fund, I'll say, that was formed under George Bush to deal with AIDS and HIV in the various countries in Africa. It was shut down temporarily by Donald Trump, hence the appearance of the Africans, right? So they considered it to be a widely successful AIDS relief program. whatever you want to say, it was there. It's been doing a job. It's $150 per person. Supposedly there are 7 million plus people with HIV in South Africa, just the country alone, not all of Africa, but just in South Africa. And as we get a reboot, instead of going back to PEPFAR, which was kind of opaque, I see the suggestion that we bring up in the on the other text, which is this would go under Health and Human Services, not State Department bureaucracy. So it would have full audits, have real metrics, and no more ghost NGOs. What happened before was $7 or $8 billion was then handed out to whoever in these countries, and then they did whatever had to be done. So there's probably some room to change that number because the fact is somebody's probably been stealing the whole time. So we can know from Africa, right? Secondly, the U.S. South African Minerals and Trade Pact. This is going to be a big thing if this comes to fruition. South Africa has the world's largest platinum reserves. It's a critical supplier of manganese, vanadium, and it has very diverse and deep mineral deposits, including gold, the gold and diamond trick, but things that are needed for EVs, missiles, and steel. So the story, once again, is going to be do not play with the Chinese. Do not let them mine there. Work with the Americans. We pay, we play, we don't exploit. All right. And third is going to be strategic military access. U.S. Navy ships in Cape Town. Drones launched from African skies, intelligence sharing to box out Iran and Russia and for the region. Okay. This isn't charity. This is going to be a real alliance. Somebody needs to put a real wedge into the BRICS program. And it can be done fairly easily as far as with the South Africans. They were always kind of an also ran. India, I think we can do a lot of work there as well. They just need to be loved a little more. But the Russians and Chinese are going to play their game, and Brazil is Brazil. So that's kind of where you are with that. So what they need is if this partnership can be formed, and that's what the movie was about. The president is going to want to see that the president of South Africa can get the leash on these genocide happy political parties like the ANC. The ANC has always been a socialist organization. That was the one that played prominently in the integration of Africa. But ANC is also pretty much exclusively one tribe. Africa is still very tribal, and ANC is pretty tribal itself. So as everybody still kind of sits in ghetto squalor and just brings more ghetto squalor upon themselves, there are still very wealthy whites and a few very wealthy blacks who are making all the calls over there and calling all the shots, if you want to say, and has to be changed. Okay. So the payoff for the United States in this is going to be China's Belt and Road Initiative takes a brutal hit. The BRICS organization will fracture. African leaders are going to see a path to prosperity that doesn't come with Beijing's foot on their neck. And Trump will get a win bigger than the tariffs or troop withdrawals. He repositions America not just as a superpower, but as the moral and strategic leader of a new Africa, all while keeping U.S. dollars on a leash and U.S. voters in the loop. You can't go wrong with something like that. But here's the catch. It only works if we end the blank checks. We cannot just keep giving money to them. That's why reshoring PEPFAR into the Department of Health and Human Services is a key. You're talking about $7 billion there, okay? That's going to be the beginning of what needs to be done. That's average what they've been doing since President Bush. They started, I think, at 4, and then they've gone to 6 or 7 the last few years. That's another one of these possible secret funds like you see with USAID, but this is under a discretionary fund in the executive office. So that's why he was able to shut it down. So he's going to be able to say, let's put this public dashboard together that shows every HIV dollar that's being spent. We're going to be able to say independent audits for every clinic. There is no mechanism that captures all 7 million people that have HIV in South Africa. It's kind of, you have to believe that I'm telling you there are that many. And that's how everybody works over there. Okay. So we need to start getting independent audits at the clinic. These are things that are easy to do with a computer, you know? And they'll say, well, we don't have access to this or that. Well, you don't have to have access to this or that. The thing can run on its own. It doesn't need the um, internet to sit there and just scan people's faces and things like that. Not at all. They're going to be able to get a more accurate database. They're going to be able to see who is at what part. Who are they past the point where they are actually showing symptoms of the disease anymore, like Magic Johnson, right? There's got to be another Magic Johnson out there. So this 150 per person number can get worked down as they get better about it. Plus, we're going to find dead wood in that list. You know, it's the usual suspects. So we get some independent auditing out there. We'll get congressional oversight that actually works, because once it goes under Health and Human Services, there's going to have to be somebody who does oversight. So that's more of a Trump style of health aid, which is results over rituals. You just sort of got to follow the plan with him. He doesn't deviate a huge amount in what he wants done once he gets that idea out there. So what's next at this point? Okay. You got the world's watching us. Those minerals are waiting if we can sit there and secure them, just as we did in Ukraine. And people will say, oh, the United States is out there stealing all the minerals. Chinese are out there actually physically stealing minerals from these various countries. They are encouraging guerrilla warfare in a lot of places, okay? Because it's easier to deal with the guerrillas than it is to deal with regular companies. Excuse me. We're in pollen season, okay? And Africa has got to choose. Does it want to be on a leash with Beijing, or does it want to have a handshake with the United States? So let's make sure the handshake comes with values, strategy, and power. We are not there to teach the Africans about culture. We are not there to teach the Africans about gay sex. We are not there to do any of that shit. We are there to do business and to keep them from murdering or trying to murder. And this is going to be something that nobody talks about. The Afrikaners are no pushover. They were able to keep apartheid going the entire time with just the amount of people they had. Apartheid didn't break apart because the Africans stood up and stopped it. The Africans were doing what they were doing, and they were not doing very well. They'd murder somebody here and there, blow up some shit. If it wasn't for a global activity to divest monies and starve them like they did to Rhodesia, starve them economically, it never would have happened. And that's what happens with years. People forget who you were dealing with back in the old days. They will find out, because I'm sure even when the Afrikaners disarmed, all the weapons didn't go into the trash can. So let's hope that this is actually the way it's going to go. But I had that feeling when he showed that video that people were just watching other people in the room, and they say, not another Zelensky. We are not going to have that. We are not going to be embarrassed. We're going to put people's feet in the fire. We're going to make the first move and go from there. So if the president of South Africa is a smart lad, he's going to say, we don't need to do this anymore. The Americans can help us out of a couple of situations that we're in. We can let the steam off as far as the pressure cooker of needing to murder all these people and have fomenting a race war, which is what China wouldn't mind it. Tell you right now, China wouldn't mind a good race war in South Africa, because I have a feeling they'd be selling rifles to both sides. So that's where we stand on this. If you like and subscribe, we are on YouTube as well now as BitChute and Rumble. For the longer, more intense issues that surround this and what PEPFAR is and all those kind of things, then please go to www.southfloridaconservative.com. Ask any questions in the comment sections, and we usually get back to you within a day or so. So that being said, have a nice Saturday, and we will talk to you later on. Goodbye.